kind of celebrated the day that Govind retired from his profession because we could not find a way to compete with his authenticity of relationship building with clients. And therefore, the model of Egon Zehnder was a completely socialistic model. By definition, you have nobody that reports to you, you never report to anybody. And that's one of the reasons why we are number one in the world. Many of my friends tell me that, we want to do philanthropy to give back. And I say, don't give back, give forward.
Govind Iyer isn't just another successful business leader. Having built his career with global organizations like Egon Zehnder, Coca-Cola, and Procter Gamble, he now serves as chairman of Social Venture Partners India, independent director at Infosys.
He has pledged half his wealth towards social impact, redefining philanthropy and empowering leaders across the country.
I look at Teach for India in the philanthropy ecosystem, and I think it's been one of the most brilliant institutions the country has ever produced, where it's literally 15 odd years old, but they've created at least 200 leaders that are running educational institutions in this country.
There are so many good initiatives that the ecosystem is taking.
And during COVID, I was privileged to be part of the Give India task force where we raised probably over $100 million.
Beautiful, beautiful. Govind sir, thank you so much.
Govind.
Such a pleasure. Okay, I would call you
Govind.
Govind, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure being here.
An absolute honor, a pleasure to be in your company. Thank you. Moments like this, for me, they are the testimony that there's something going right in life and I'm moving in the right direction. So thank you for being here. Let me just read something about you. Of course, you know it. For the audience, I would like to read. Chairman, Social Venture Partners India, SVP India, leads India's largest network of engaged philanthropists. Independent Director, Infosys. Senior Advisor with Warburg Pincus. Board Member with Give India. Board Member with Karmayogi, Bharat. And Living My Promise signatory, where you have pledged to donate 50% of your wealth for social impact. And before that as well, you have worked with organizations like, Egon Zehnder, you have worked with Coca-Cola, you have worked with Procter Gamble. And the pedigree goes like so beautiful. This is like a perfect career one would expect. The first question that I ask is, if you were to introduce yourself without your title, without your pedigree, without your experience, how would you do that? If you ask me the same question, I don't have an answer, Govind, for that. But since you have actually traveled this path more than me, would love to hear from you.
So I'll quote something that happened a few days ago, where I was in a gathering where I was being introduced by somebody who happened to have worked in the same profession as I did, and said, we kind of celebrated the day that Govind retired from his profession because we could not find a way to compete with his authenticity of relationship building with clients. And therefore, we would never win because of that. I think that is a testament to who I probably am, how people perceive me. I think I just do it naturally. For me, I don't try to put on anything. I am who I am. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I wear who I am on my sleeve. And I just believe there's more goodness in others for us to recognize than anything else. The day we look at any cup half full, we feel a purpose of life is there. The moment you start looking at things half empty, you are actually being more negative than positive. And I've always believed in myself, Gaurav, that the more positive I am, the more positive energy I will attract. So people say I'm conflict averse. I am. People say I don't like to confront issues. I don't. Because I don't believe you need to confront or be conflict averse to get solutions. You need to be empathetic, caring, and solutions will emerge. So there are times when I could have done things differently and been a little more tougher. They call it tough love. I'm not a tough love person. I'm just a love person. So I think I have my fatal flaws. One of them is that, but I live my life with that fatal flaw and I'm quite happy with that.
How beautiful, how beautiful. At the same time, would love to hear, if you can just pick up a couple of seeds, which were sown by your parents.
My mother was a gynecologist, grew up in Chennai, fortunately in a situation where in the 40s and 50s, they were actually quite wealthy. And she went through a journey of her life where actually they lost most of their wealth. And so when she got married to my father, she actually didn't have the wealth she used to have. And my father came from a very, very, very simple background in Lucknow. He grew up in Lucknow, one of 6 children, and his mother pretty much brought him up. And he didn't have much money. He was actually as he calls it, a BSc second class, but he came first in his class from Lucknow. And my mother was a gynecologist, an MBBS, so clearly far more qualified than he was. But I saw the way he managed to slowly and steadily ensure that she had happiness.
Yeah.
And without putting pressure on himself and how his journey of life. So I think I've learned a lot on giving from both my parents to each
From
other,
very starting.
and how they gave to each other and how they gave to others.
From very starting.
Yeah, from where he started. And I think his generation worked really hard, but I don't think got the rewards the way we probably worked less hard, but got more rewards.
Yeah.
So that's when I started. I think about 15 years ago. You talked of Amy Fox earlier, right? It was an Amy Fox event that I went to, the first Mobius training with Egon Zehnder, where it was a 5-day program, and where we just went into our inner selves. And I discovered that, I've been the privileged beneficiary of a lot of good relationships, a lot of happiness, and a lot of people around me who I love, and I think they love me, vice versa. I said, how can I take that love and give it to a sector that I think is devoid of it too much, and which is the social sector. So that's how SVP was born in August 2012. I'd gone for the Mobius training program. I was thinking about life. I was trying to attract positive energy. And suddenly I get a call from the founder chair of SVP, Ravi Venkateshan, saying, can you join SVP board?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what he meant by that. And I said, I can, but tell me more about it. He said, no, just join it. I'll talk to you about it later.
Yeah.
That's how I started my SVP journey. And I'll tell you, it's been a pivotal journey for me. So starting with Mobius, starting with my own reflections, starting with what I did. And by the time I was 60, I was very clear my purpose for the next 10 years is not my corporate world, but it's really what I can get others to do for society. And that's really why I feel the next 10 years are going to be the best years of my life, and not the last 40.
So beautiful.
Because the next 10 years is where I'm hoping to be able to get many people like you and others to recognize the true giving is not giving to others, but giving to yourself. And many of my friends tell me that, we want to do philanthropy to give back. And it's a good thought. And I say, don't give back, give forward.
Yeah.
Give forward to people that will benefit from you. So giving back is seen as giving for what you got. I'm saying give forward for what you got. And I think more and more people will see this. And I'm really privileged to have an amazing group of friends, amazing group of relationships, and I can't ask for more positivity in my life today.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm a firm believer that, the way you show up in the world has to do with the connections that you build throughout your life.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that the outer world is a manifestation of what's going on inside. So when on one hand, when you're talking about that I'm really happy, I'm vibrating at the level from a space of love and happiness, what else would you expect? While doing research on you, a common theme that emerged from me was giving, philanthropy, being kind to others, connecting with people. These were the few themes that emerged. But at the same time, you spent 23 and a half years with one organization where people love hopping from one place to another. What is it about that organization that you stayed there for 23 years?
So I'll roll back to the 6 months before I joined the organization. And I had the privilege of having an outstanding mentor. Her name was Rabha Bijapurkar. Some people may know of her. She was a legend at her time in marketing. And she was a very close friend and family friend. And she asked me to do an interesting exercise for myself when I was 36. And she said, Govind, let's go back the last 10 years of your life and take every year and look at what were the happiest points of that year and what were the lowest points of that year, and identify the emotional themes that were going through the happiest and the lowest times. And then let's talk. So she just asked me to do this exercise, and I came back. And then we sat together, and she just looked at those 10 sheets of paper I brought to her, which was 10 years of my journey. And she said, now let's identify what's the best environment for you to thrive.
Wow.
And what's the best places that will get you more high points than low points. Through that discovery is actually the way I joined Egon Zehnder. Because I found Egon Zehnder answered most of who I am. So even before I joined the firm, I said, I'd done my research on the firm. And it's an amazing firm with Harvard Business case studies about it and who they are. And I said, if what they've written is what they are, then it matches up with who I am. It might be, post-purchase decisions can happen. You think something is X, but it becomes Y. In my case, what I read about Egon Zehnder was far better than what I experienced. So the first thing is the credit to the firm. The credit to the culture of the firm, the credit to what it stood for, and the credit for making me a better person. So I would give that. Why did I stay there? Because I just innovated and I kept recreating what I could do more and more. And the firm is so entrepreneurial. I started my journey, Gaurav, being in the industrial practice, focusing on, because I was an engineer. Then I started doing private equity work, technology work. Then I led the CEO practice and the board practice. Along the way, I spent a lot of time leading the India practice for about 10 years. Then I also spent time on some governance issues for the firm globally. So what I did was, over my 23 years, I probably did about 15 or 16 different things.
Wow.
And that kept me motivated, while I continue to keep client service as my core base. So the client service piece never changed, but I kept getting me that 5-10% every year that helped me upskill myself, helped me sharpen the saw a little bit, using Franklin Covey's words.
Yeah.
So I kept sharpening the saw to say, how can I keep myself fresh? And that came through that.
Beautiful. Both the themes that you picked up, they are extremely important for us to understand. This podcast is primarily, we touch three areas, Govind. We talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about career advancement, we talk about spirituality. The themes that you've just picked up, one, you spoke about the environment, which is extremely important. And interestingly, not many people talk about environment, the importance of environment. And when you're talking about the culture, that's one. The second one is you continue to sharpen your saw. So let's double click on the first one. People talk about culture, people write about culture, but what is a culture? What was it about that particular culture that grounded you there for 23 and a half years?
I think the single biggest thing was to be yourself. I had the privilege of having some amazing colleagues. I was one of the first few to join the office. I was the fourth consultant to join the India team.
You were the first one in Mumbai.
Yeah, the first one in Mumbai. My colleague Sunny set the ground rules for the Mumbai office. He came in early and just got it going. But yeah, I was part of the first, one of the first consultants in Mumbai. But I think one of the things that's important to recognize is that for me, the people around me help me be who I am. And I think that's one thing that shapes culture, where you let everybody be who they are, don't reshape them.
Just accepting them
Accepting them for who they are and making sure that they're aligned towards common purposes or some North Stars, but not asking them to be somebody who they are not. I think that's what Egon Zehnder gave me. The second thing is, I think Egon, when he set up the firm in 1964, set with a very simple principle, and the principle being that we don't compete with each other. We compete to give the best to our clients. And therefore, the model of Egon Zehnder was a completely socialistic model, where every single employee, every single consultant in the firm is equal, no differentiation, no reporting relationships. By definition, you have nobody that reports to you. You never report to anybody. You work in the service of the client. And you bring in your colleagues to help you in the service of the client. And therefore, even the compensation framework, and if you read up Harvard Business case studies on this, it's not linked to any work that you do. You get the same compensation as a partner at Egon Zehnder anywhere in the world, irrespective of geography or performance. So by definition, you're working as one family. It's like, and there are some communities in India where they don't have separate bank accounts. They have one common account, and every family member eats from it and takes from it and puts into it. That's Egon Zehnder. There was only one P&L globally, and everybody at the end of the year, every partner at the end of the year, got the same share of global profits based on certain tenure. 1 year tenure gets a little more than, less than a 2 year. 2 year gets a little less than 3 year. But that's a formula. It's not based on performance. So then you will say, how do people perform? There's no measurement criteria.
Yeah.
Oh, there's good measurement criteria. We have a 360 mechanism. We have feedback. We all look at each other and say, aha, Gaurav's doing very well. I'm not doing as well. Peer pressure comes in. So it's not driven by numerical goals. It's driven by complementarity of peer pressure and working together. And that's one of the reasons why we are number one in the world.
So as you mentioned, Govind, that you have operated from a space of love and happiness because of the context that you were born in. At the same time, I would still call it a privilege of witnessing people who are probably not born in that kind of context.
Yeah, it's true.
So what they have to offer to the same environment is not a sense of share. It's not a sense of love and equality. They come from a space, you know what, I should have more.
Yeah.
And they operate from a space of reactive patterns.
That's true.
How does that fit in?
So I think it's a very good call out. And yes, the world is very unequal, and that different experiences different people have. I think the two points that I would make, which are very important, I'll talk about the Egon Zehnder construction about my own life.
Yeah.
At Egon Zehnder, we try our very best to get people who come with different backgrounds to recognize the Egon Zehnder way. So there's a very strong apprenticeship program for the first year to help people recognize this equality spirit.
Yeah.
Because there are people who come from investment banking,
Yeah.
there are people who come as lawyers, there are people who come as from McKinsey, there are people, all different cultures, different.
Yeah.
So they all have to normalize to the Egon Zehnder way. Has it been easy? No, it's not, Gaurav. As an office leader for 10 years of the Egon Zehnder practice, I found it quite difficult to manage this at times. But I think when they see a lot around them that's similar, there's a lot of care, a lot of love. I mean, I can talk of one specific experience where one colleague joined us and was kind of confused that, we're here to do work and go home. Why do we have celebration? Why do we have get-togethers? Why do we have birthdays celebrated? Why do we go on an offsite? Let's just do work and go home. And I said, because you spend more time at the workplace than you spend with your family.
Precisely.
This has to be your second family.
Yeah.
Many organizations have a different approach to that. They say you come to work, and you go home to your family. And I say you come to one family and you go home to another family.
Yeah.
And that was the Egon Zehnder culture from the day I've known it, and Egon himself. And I think that gets everybody into the same ecosystem.
Yeah,
so the
so
moment you
beautiful.
can make it a common purpose and a common goal, I think all our differences start coming together.
Yeah. They're so beautiful. I mean, whosoever has brought together the philosophy must be operating at a very different level. And as you said it, that this is our second family, this is our second home. It reminds me of what Ramdas said. Ramdas said that we are just walking each other home.
Yeah.
Right? If we all are walking each other home, so that means we are just walking each other to a space where we could actually experience a sense of fulfillment rather than the pseudo success that we celebrate in the world. And in fact, you spoke about happiness, fulfillment, and success. Tell me about that. I found it quite intriguing. How do you define success today when you have everything that people would give their left arm for? How do you define success? How do you define
If I look at people around me and I say that I think they're successful, it's when they've actually had an impact on other people. And the impact could be professional, could be personal, could be just being there for others. People that I like to learn from and grow from are people who actually have given much more of themselves and their journey to others than to themselves. So for me, all three go together firstly, but the most important word in all this is fulfillment. Because I think fulfillment comes from you feeling you've done something for yourself, which many of us find very easy to gauge. I got a promotion, I got a salary increase, I got a bank balance.
Yeah, and just
That is
feeding
success,
into my
right?
ego.
And that is great.
My identity.
And my ego. But the moment you take that success and distribute that and say, I've also created 10 leaders, I've made 20 other people happy, and I have benefited other organizations or other people from growing, that translates to, in some ways, success of a different nature because it's happiness. I think your personal success and the happiness you give to others should lead to fulfillment in my mind.
Beautiful.
Just pure success in itself is not. And I was telling you about examples, right? So for me, when work with organizations, if I take Unilever, it's a great example of a company which I think is very successful, but I think is very fulfilling. Because if there's one group that I'm aware of, and may not be the only one, that has the maximum turnout of alumni gatherings, it is Unilever.
Yeah.
And that
And
tells
maximum
you
number of CEO leaders in the industry.
they've created leaders. So they've, as an institution, they've had success, but they've had fulfillment as well.
As well.
And I think when leaders go through that, they embody that and they give it to others. If I look at organizations like even McKinsey, they are a similar kind of organization. They spread. So I think there are institutions out there that do that very well. I look at Teach for India in the philanthropy ecosystem. And I think it's been one of the most brilliant institutions the country has ever produced. Where it's literally 15 odd years old, but they've created at least 200 leaders that are running educational institutions in this country. Now, they don't go on tom-tom, but to me, that's fulfillment.
Yeah.
Fulfillment is when you've had success as an institution, but you've given happiness and growth to many others.
Yeah. Govind, help me
that's-
understand. You have worked with different organizations from Coca-Cola to P&G to Egon Zehnder to SVP. What is it that you have found in people who are able to live a fulfilled life than people who are only feeding into their identity? What's the difference in their either mindset, the approach, or
I think it's firstly a belief in yourself and having security, which is easy to say. It's very difficult to get.
very difficult,
Very
very
difficult to
difficult.
get. But I think when people have a belief in themselves and they have the belief that they're not being judged.
Yeah, I mean, they know it. It's a part of their
Yeah.
DNA. They're so
It's-
comfortable in their own skin.
That I think is the first one. And the second is that if you don't judge others, sometimes you will not get judgment on yourself. Because you won't feel the judgment. I think we as human beings we tend to compare, we tend to contrast, we tend to believe we don't have it all. We're just wired that way. So the day that we can reach a stage of saying whatever I get is because of the goodness of others and not because of the goodness of myself, I think we will reach that stage of feeling that I don't need to compete with anybody else. I'll give you a simple one of the people that really inspires me and motivates me is a gentleman called Nithya Shanti. Nithya Shanti is an individual who started his life in the corporate world and became a monk, a Buddhist monk, for about 9 years. And now he just does leadership coaching and training out of Pune. And when I was in that phase of life, when a lot of things were happening in my life 12 years ago, I went for a 1-week program with him at Pondicherry. And he just, demonstrated through a variety of ways for me to understand that the more you think positively, the more likely a negative outcome will not happen. Literally, like if I'm coming here to meet you, and I looked at the map and it said 11:52 I will arrive. And I just said, that's a bit close to 12, but I'll get there by 12. I didn't angst. I reached at 12:03. I think if I had angsted more, saying, will I be here on time or not, it actually would have created more negative energy in me. And he demonstrated this in so many different ways to us, and I won't take you through that, over 5 days of meditation, soul searching, that it made me believe that I never therefore believe that there's no solution that can't be found. I'm always a believer that every problem has a solution. Just be
Everything
calm.
will fall in place.
Be calm. It may not be a solution you want,
Yeah.
but the solution will be there. And therefore, calmness to arrive at a solution is what I think that equanimity will actually let people feel more comfortable with themselves. The moment you get stressed and the moment you're not able to think the same way when you're stressed. And you talked earlier about trust and performance. You talk, right?
Yeah.
And in my journey at Egon Zehnder, I found that the most successful CEOs that I witnessed, either through my own work or otherwise, were those that did not believe that their most important measure was financial performance. They believed their most important measure was the way the financial performance came through, which is through IQ and EQ.
IQ and EQ. Yeah.
Okay, many people believe IQ is the most important and you need to be intelligent to deliver.
Yeah.
I think carrying people along with the emotional quotient and the belief, again,
Yeah.
going back to the emotional bank account at Franklin Covey's
Franklin
book,
Covey's book.
is more important than IQ. I mean, I can tell you that at Egon Zehnder, our philosophy was CEOs get fired because of EQ, not because of IQ.
Yeah.
They don't sit
So
into,
beautiful.
and so I think the more we recognize that how we carry people along and what we do with them is more important than how we demonstrate our actions. That I think is the difference between.
If you look at the tenure of CEOs worldwide, there was a research that I was going through that the tenure of the CEOs, they are shrinking from 5.7 years to 4.5 years to now it's anywhere between 2.3 years to 2.5 years. What's going on? That the tenure is
So I
shrinking.
think a lot of things are going on here. I think the biggest one for me, Gaurav, is the fact that the expectations on every human being, forget CEOs, whether it's my 19-year-old son or whether it's a 14-year-old teenager or it's a 55-year-old CEO, the expectations of everybody around us has gone up dramatically in 20 years. There's a social media impact, there is the stakeholder impact, there's the shareholders impact. So therefore, the pressures of performance has gone up a lot, because of which the expectations of performance have gone up. So nobody's now looking at things from a marathon perspective. Everything is a sprint now. Everything is instantaneous.
You just need fast food.
I
10
mean, a
minutes
simple
delivery.
thing, right? I take you and me. If you message me today and say, hey, Govind, I'm planning to come to Bombay 2 weeks from now, would love to catch up with you. I can assure you, by the end of the day, if I'm not responded, you'll say, yaar, Govind ka response nahi aaya. By tomorrow morning, if I'm not responded, you'll say, like, he's ignoring me. By day after tomorrow, you'll say, man, I thought I had a relationship with him. Now, you know, in 48 hours, if I don't get a response, it means there's an issue. Why are we moving at the space? No, I don't have an answer to that
That's
question.
exactly the question is. So there are so many books written on EQ. There are accomplished and fulfilled, I'll not say only successful, I think there are accomplished and fulfilled individuals. I'll not even attach the word leader here as well. I'll be very mindful of what I'm saying. There are accomplished and fulfilled leaders like you, Govind, who are talking about EQ.
Yeah.
And here we are, our capacity to consume EQ and get better with EQ is getting
Much lesser.
Much lesser.
So I agree. So that's the reason why we're not able to give people time to digest and settle and perform, right? So one of the things that I'm a strong proponent of, and I hope the world will change, I don't think it's going to change the pace I want to, is anybody who gets into a new role, there's a lovely book called The First 90 Days.
First 90 days.
Yeah.
Beautiful book.
I believe the first 90 days, you have to have zero expectations of performance. You need to have 100% acceptance of EQ. I would say 2 out of 10 on that score I'm at today with experience I've had with people. Because both sides want a performance. You come in saying, I have to show that I've performed.
That's exactly what
And the other person says, also, I want to see what's going in performance, right?
precisely.
If there's a way whereby we can say the first 90 days is actually a non-performing stage, you will see CEOs perform much better. If that one mantra changes, I think it's going to be a silver bullet for getting a longer tenure CEO. And it's about not just CEOs, any other leaders. But today the stock market wants instantaneous performance. So therefore, I feel organizations that plan succession at every level in advance and give people time to settle into the new role will allow much greater acceptance. And I'll give you examples of common life. When you get married and a woman comes home to a new house, if the expectation on day one is that he or she, the husband or the wife, sets the expectation that you have to integrate immediately, it actually is very challenging.
So unfair.
Right? And it's, even if you have a relationship of 4 years or 5 years, can you give the person time to settle down? Can the environment around us give the person the time to settle down? And I don't think we do that very well anywhere in the world. I'm not talking just India. So I think somewhere in the whole world, we need to find a way to prepare, I would say, give people a chance to integrate into new roles, settle into new roles. That would be my perspective, Gaurav.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's so important when we are welcoming somebody new in the system. Forget about the people that you'll be interacting with. The very fact that we have to integrate in the physical environment is so very important.
Yeah.
It's so very important.
And I'll give you an example of, I'm just pivoting to philanthropy, which is my journey going forward. If you look at it as social venture partners, we're now 750 of us around India. And of that, my rough guess is at least 500 to 600 of them are business professionals who only know the business way of working. There's a lot of unlearning I had to do when I joined SVP, and a lot of unlearning the 500 or 600 of us have to do. What we did in our corporate world, we cannot do in the social sector.
Yeah.
So at SVP, we are trying our very best to allow them to integrate into the sector before expecting them to contribute. And it's not an easy journey because you have to unlearn a hell of a lot. I'll give you my own experience. My first meeting or second meeting with an SVP gathering, an NGO was speaking, brilliant work they'd done. I had tears in my eyes. Smallish NGO, doing amazing work. And I just asked a simple, for me, a simple, nuanced question. I just love what you're doing. How can I help you grow bigger and scale bigger and take this message to many others? Simple question, I thought. 2 weeks later, I asked my colleague, are we working with them? They said, no, they don't want to work with us. So I said, oh, what happened? They said, because of your question. So I said, what do you mean? They said, here we don't have salaries for next month. We don't have enough people on the ground. And this person doesn't understand that we are surviving for today. And he is lovely talking about how to grow for the future. I don't disagree with his question. But if he's not understood our ground reality or asked me the questions.
Beautiful.
And he's just presumed I can grow when my foundation is so weak. It was just a huge slap on the face for me to recognize that I hadn't asked the questions to understand the reality of the situation. And I presumed my position was, we can grow from here. That's what we need to do more and more of in the sector, getting people from the corporate world to settle into the ecosystem of the not-for-profit world and recognize the constraints under which they work and not judge them for the constraints.
I'm just taking a pause. I'm just slowing down right now as I'm breathing and just consuming the gift that you have given me. The question that you've asked and the way it was interpreted reminds me of my conversation with one of my teachers, Govind. And I remember I was having this coaching conversation, and I asked a very similar question that, tell me, how can I assist you? How can I serve you? And my teacher paused me there. He said, Gaurav, this question might not land well. And I did not understand because I thought that I'm coming from a space of service. She said, take a deeper dive into the assumptions that you're operating from. First, who do you think you are to help the other person?
Correct.
Second, when you know that you're helping the other person, where are you placing yourself?
That's right.
In context to the other person in your mind. And for me, that was like, shucks, man, I never thought about that. Who do I think I am to help the other person? And when I'm saying, let me help, I was anyways placing myself above the person.
Yeah.
Let me just help this.
Yeah.
So in your experience, Govind, I'm sure you would have worked with several CEOs and CXOs who have transcended from this part of the world into the SVP world that you are evangelizing in this phase of your life. What is the primary mindset shift required to release these jackets of the corporate world, hang up the boots and step into the world of the NGOs and the social development sector that you work with?
Yeah, so firstly, I would say it's more the mind than the attitude. So, like you said, I don't think you need to remove your jacket or your tie to get there. I don't think you need to wear a jhola to get there.
Metaphorically.
Yeah, I know. You don't need to wear a jhola to get there. So I'm saying if tomorrow I become a jhola wala,
Now.
that doesn't mean that I can connect with the sex system.
No.
So let me
No.
start with saying...
Metaphorically.
Yeah, I know where you're coming
Yes.
from, but I'm saying I think it's the mindset of asking questions and understanding exactly what your coach mentioned to you versus presuming I know it all. That's the first thing. Because the obvious point is, I know what it takes because I've done that for 35 years. But do you know what it takes in this organization is where I think I for myself and we as an individual should do that. And I'd go one step further, Gaurav, and say that let's hold and suspend our opinions and advice for at least 3 to 5 meetings before we give it. they will ask for it in the first meeting. But that's because they believe you know it.
You know it.
The fact is, I do know it, but I don't know it from your context. I know it from my context. So I have learned now when a not-for-profit organization asks me for advice or guidance, they're coming from a good place. They want it, but I don't know their reality. So I try my best. I can't say I succeed all the time. I try my best to say, what is your reality? Tell me first, before I share with you what I can do. So if you are using education as a metaphor, if you're in high school, I'll give you advice that can take you to the undergraduate school. If you're already a PhD student, then I'll let you know how you can evolve from there. If you're in kindergarten, there's no point giving you advice from high school to undergrad, right?
So true.
So I have learned that different not-for-profits and different organizations at different ecosystem stage. So especially in the grassroots, and I'll give you an example, just to put it into context. There was an organization that was making some lovely products. It's an organization that got women in the various lower income groups in Bombay to come together and do form self-help groups and make products for 3 or 4 hours a day, sell it, get some money, and earn about 4,000 or 5,000 rupees a month, which gave them a purpose for their being. And just so that you know, that money is not the money itself. It gave them the ability to tell their husbands that I am also independent.
Yeah.
That money went for education of their children. They did not give it for anything else but education. And the third thing, it gave them the sense of confidence that they have something they can contribute to the house. And this organization...
And a sense of healthy identity.
Very much. And this organization started small with 10 people, then 20, then 30. Now it's become very big. And then I went in the early stages and I said, such fabulous products, let's get them on Amazon or Flipkart. Or let's get them and I'll give you access. Don't worry about it. Or let's get them out there. Right? And they were delighted. They saying, we never thought we'll ever get there.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake I made.
Why do you say so?
3 things. One is their expectations were high, that we're going to be selling it on that, and people are going to buy it. Second, we put it on there, and they got a demand which they couldn't fulfill. They got delisted from Amazon.
Shucks.
Look at from excitement to disappointment, right? Were they ready? No, they were not. What I would have done is, I would have said, let me get you to 10 corporates. Let's get your products in there. Let's take up your production from 10 units to 20 units, to 30 units, to 40 units, before we get to 200. I did not understand their capacity to deliver. And I offered a solution which I thought was the best solution for them. This is a real-life example that I learned from, to say, understand what they can do versus what they want to do.
This is so beautiful. Govind, thank you. For me, this is a masterclass, by the way, right? One of my teachers, or mentors, and somebody who's highly connected. When I started my podcast, he said, Gaurav, I'm going to connect you to someone. And he connected me to 2 people. I delivered on the promise because he said, I'm going to send you 2 connections, interview them. I interviewed them, went really well. I had the privilege of interviewing Shiva Kumarji through that connection. He said, Gaurav, both the conversations went really well. What are your learnings? I shared my learnings from those 2 podcasts. I'm going to share 2 more connections with you. I think the way he handheld me through that journey was so beautiful. And at times I used to wonder, why can't you connect me with everyone that you know?
That's right. That's right.
And he told me exactly the same thing. Gaurav, if I would have connected you a year back with all the people that I know, you would not have delivered. And thus you would have killed your own expectations. You would have actually committed suicide in your mind, being the podcaster that you want to become. I know what your strengths are. I know the right people. Slowly and steadily continue to build that. Now, there came a time when we had around 170 episodes.
Lovely.
I reached out to one gentleman and he said, Gaurav, I'll be very happy to be on your podcast. And the gentleman was extremely generous. He came to our office. We had a beautiful conversation. Out of curiosity, I've asked him, I said, you continue to go to such big podcast. And mine is comparatively not as big as you would have already been to. Why did you come? He said, Gaurav, because you have already delivered 173 podcasts in the past. It talks about the consistency of purpose that you have. And what you are saying is actually a stamp on the new assumption that I'm further growing. So thank
No, I
you.
appreciate that. Appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, no, I think it's journey of measuring your growth, right?
Yeah.
And no, I think that's very powerful. And one of the other things that I've learned in the last, I'd say, maybe 3 or 4 years, is how it's very important to be extremely humble when you're learning something new, and not to presume you know it all. Okay. So, for example, digital marketing. It's an area where I'm probably, I won't say negative, but 0.5 on 10.
Yeah.
Now, how do I go through a journey? I can either depend on somebody else or I can learn from somebody else, right? And I have chosen to learn from the youngest members of my SVP team.
Wow.
So I'm learning from them because I can then grow myself and they feel very secure in sharing with me. And in that process, I'm hoping that they recognize that I'm a learner, I'm not just a giver. Otherwise, the feeling is we have to be very hesitant about going
Precisely.
to go, right?
Precisely.
And I think all of us have to recognize that positivity, that learning and giving are both on the same coin. And if we only believe we are givers, then actually we might not learn as much as we want to as we go forward.
And we also,
That's been my journey in the last 4 or 5 years.
and we also might never experience the joy and the pain of receiving.
Yeah, that's also
Right.
true.
Just help me understand, what is the core philosophy of SPP that you feel really fulfilled and humbled about?
I think I'll say it less about me, but what people have perceived of SVP is 3 things. Number 1 is it's helped them discover how they can do something different and more meaningful and change the way they are. Number 1. The second is the community. I think we're all here for one purpose. So there's no confusion. We don't have any economic need. We have only a purposeful need of doing something good for others. And the third thing for me is as I grow old, I'll have a bunch of friends around me. So for me, that's what SVP gives me, right? I think you might argue and say, "Govind, where's the NGO impact? Where's the community change?" We're all kind of type A in our own way. If we come together and we want to see success, we'll deliver success.
We will deliver success.
And there's always been this battle at the SVP core of SVP is, do we measure our success by how much NGOs make an impact on beneficiaries? Or do we measure our success in any other way? And I believe we measure for me, measurement of SVP success is how many partners have become engaged with philanthropy, who in turn work with NGOs, who in turn work with beneficiaries.
Beautiful.
Don't start the reverse, because I can easily go to 20 not-for-profits that are big, give them money and get them to scale and get 1 million jobs done.
Yeah.
But have I got 1,000 people converted through philanthropy? The answer is no.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
I think for me, success and happiness at SVP is to see every single person who comes in chart their own journey through philanthropy.
Beautiful. And also just measuring success based on the lag measure. I think it's an incomplete picture, right? When you focus on the lead measures, that's where the path is clear. That's one. Second is,
And let me pause here. Take Ravi Venkatesan, who was the founder, right? This is Ravi's admission, so it's not my comment. Ravi hadn't done much in philanthropy till he started SVP. He was a Microsoft chairman, chairman of Cummins, 2 outstanding institutions,
precisely.
a big guy, Harvard MBA, like God's gift to mankind. And he started SVP. 12 years later, he's doing very little at SVP, but he's created a fabulous institution.
Yeah.
But he's doing 10 other things outside of SVP, which were funneled in philanthropy because of the SVP journey.
Yeah. And he often talks about the portfolio life that he talks
That's
about.
right. And GAME was created by 3 SVP partners,
Yeah.
he plus 2 others. What he's doing with Energy Alliance now, that people from the SVP engage with him.
Yeah.
So I think I see SVP as an incubator and an
Yeah.
ecosystem for people to come in and do many more things with their lives outside of SVP.
Yeah.
So I would be very disappointed if people came into SVP, stayed in SVP, and did only SVP work.
Yeah.
I want them to go and do 10 other things outside
Yeah,
SVP.
yeah. Unless we have the exposure of the multi-discipline, we'll not be able to blossom
Yeah.
in one area as well, because the learning from one area,
Can
it
go
actually
there.
they feed into the other areas as well. So resonate with you, sir. I also started a new initiative, we are not investing there, neither time, money, energy, or hopes, right? It's all more or less we have shut down that. It was known as iOwn. Now, iOwn was a platform where we used to connect coaches with social development sector,
Got it.
right? where we could work on capacity building, right? Now, I think that's one of the major lacunas in the social development sector. We used to bring coaches because we used to train a lot of people, and we used to connect those coaches with social development people. So I had the privilege of working with, let's say, Help Age India.
Yeah.
I worked with Save, right? We worked with a couple of NGOs. Now, capacity building is a big time gap. What are the initiatives that SVP has taken to curb that gap?
So at SVP, just so that you are aware, Gaurav, that each of our partners contributes 3 lakhs a year into a kitty. We're now about 500 of us this year, so about 15 crores. And of that 15 crores, we disperse about 10 crores to NGOs, largely only for capacity and capability building.
Beautiful.
So we encourage our not-for-profits to use our what we call individual donations, because we're not CSR bound, we don't have any regulations, our own personal money for capacity and capability, which allow them to scale and grow. And when they scale and grow, they can get money from a number of other organizations that want programmatic spending. So a CSR would want programmatic spending. As the chair of the CSR committee at Infi, I would want to invest behind projects that will scale and grow and see impact, because that is the mandate of CSR. I may not be able to invest as much in capacity and capability because of the various constraints of the CSR policy. But at SVP, we are not constrained by anything. It's our own money. It's my own way. So as long as we do it well, I would say at least 80% of our money is around capacity and capability. Now, let me differentiate the two. Capacity is, if I'm doing some great education work, I get 2 trainers to help me train better. That's capacity.
GM.
But capability would be to take the same trainers and make them better. So we do both capacity and capability building.
Beautiful.
Capacity is where our capital may go to. Capability is where our partners make a difference. So capability is where they come in and they say, okay, Govind, if you're a good speaker, I'll make you a better speaker. But capacity would be around saying, let's get 2 more Govinds into the organization so we have more scale to grow.
I think that's where you spoke about you draw happiness. Not only when people are giving money, you draw happiness with the percentage of people who are actually engaged in working with those NGOs.
So take a guess, Gaurav. How many hours do you think our partners give in an average year, let's say 2024, to the ecosystem of philanthropy, right? There's no other organization that's given 25,000 hours of giving of our partners to our NGOs. We track this. So 25,000 hours of reasonably respected reasonably experienced individuals who are giving their experience to the ecosystem.
And I would definitely
is not
call
measurable.
I would definitely call it respected as well.
Yeah. But when I say respected, I respect the NGOs also. So what I'm saying is I don't want respect to be the reason why. But I'm saying 25,000 hours is a lot. And if you monetize it, like the US monetizes it, if you monetize that, that's a lot of money.
It is.
But I don't want to monetize monetize it because the feeling for the individual is more important than the money it values to. And I think those 25,000 hours is what I think SVP's biggest contribution to the. It's not the 10 crores we give. It's the 25,000 hours we give.
Yeah. You know, as they say that sitting with someone who has actually walked the path for an hour is worth millions.
Yeah.
One good advice can actually shift the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
Right? It's like when you're vibrating at a level, it just transfers to the other person as well. You know, there are so many good initiatives that the ecosystem is taking. So Govind, if you look at especially in India, if you look at the startup world, there's so much buzz, there's so much happening.
Yeah, very exciting.
Very exciting, right? So we have got the Shark Tank, we have got so many incubators, there's a T-Hub in Hyderabad. What are few of those initiatives which are happening in the world of social development that you are, from where you draw inspiration from, or that brings some excitement so that people can draw towards that?
Yeah. So I think from 10 years ago, Gaurav, to today, I think the entire social sector as a whole, which is not just grassroots NGOs, but also what I call capacity and capability building organizations, has grown manyfold. It's not visible to the outside world. There's no measurement of unicorns. there's no measurement of capitalization, market capitalization. So you cannot see it. But I'll speak for myself. In the last 10 years, I've seen at least 10 organizations emerge, which didn't exist 10 years ago, that have made a catalytic change in the sector. Okay. If you look at organizations like Give India, which I've been privileged to be on the board of for many years, it's pivoted the way giving happens in India, the way CSRs look at their giving journey, the way organizations are now doing retail fundraising, which was never done before, where there are many people in the retail world who want to give 1 rupee, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 100 rupees, but they don't know how to give, right? There are organizations there are movements that have been set up like Joy of Giving Week in October, the first week of October, created by a bunch of volunteers, one of whom was Venkat Krishnan, a dear friend of mine. He created this. It's created like a movement across the country which is never before. This is about probably 10 years old now. We have organizations like Dasra, which do amazing work in the space of identifying opportunities for individuals to contribute both financially and engagement. Teach for India, I mentioned earlier. Then you have the Convergence Foundation, which has 18 organizations started by Ashish Dhawan and his wife Manisha, which are focused on social and economic development of the country, all focused on system change. You have Social Venture Partners, which is for individuals. So you have an organization that's focused on system change. You have an organization that's focused on individuals. You have another organization called Giving Pie, which is again created by Dasra, which is to get philanthropists to know what's happening in the ecosystem.
There's something like Deshpande Foundation.
Deshpande Foundation does amazing execution work. Then there's a fantastic accelerator and incubator called Nudge, based out of Bangalore. Again, one of our SVP investees many years ago, run by the CEO, who was also the CEO of Give India and the CEO of Nudge, it's the same person, Atul Satija. He's incubated many, many companies in the social sector. So if I look at from 10 years to now, I can think of amazing transformation that's happened in the sector. What me and others like me need to do is bring more visibility to the fact that this has created social return. It doesn't create capital return because money is not coming back with capital. But the social return is something that cannot be measured through capital. It has to be measured in some form. Do we know the answer how to do that? I don't. But will I find an answer, hopefully, before I leave this world? The answer is yes. Because we have to measure social return for people to feel they want to do work. And I think, a bunch of us are thinking of how do we recognize exemplars, companies that have done enormous amount of work. And I think there are many exemplars in this country, but they're not being recognized as much. So I think that's the journey we'll go through. You talked of Shark Tank, you talk of other things. Fast Pitch is an event that SVP started 4 years ago, which was meant to enable people to share their story. Simple. Beautiful. Share their story. No other expectation. It's a 2-hour journey, typically on 5:30 to 7:30. We're doing now. Our next one is in April 24th or 25th, I forget. I think it's 24th, that's a Thursday. Where what we are trying to do is we're trying to get 10 not-for-profits to talk about their story to an audience of potentially 2,000 or 3,000 people on Zoom. To allow them to hear their story, understand what's happening in the sector, and contribute if they want to financially. And in the last 3 episodes, we've raised about 14 crores for these 36 not-for-profits that went through this journey. And this is philanthropists who really just hear them, believe in them, and contribute to them. There's no due diligence. They trust that SVP has done their work of at least ensuring the right people are there on the platform. This is one such enabling organization that I see many such movements happening in the country that will over time give a lot more exposure. And my only encouragement to everybody out there is don't hesitate to participate in your own small way in every way you want. Because every small drop makes a difference. Don't believe you need to have a lot of money. Don't believe you need to have a lot of time. If you have even 4 hours a month, you can make a huge difference. If you have 1 hour a month, you can make a difference. If you have some money, you can make a bigger difference. But you don't need to have money to make a difference. You need the will and the spirit to want to contribute.
And as you mentioned, the heart.
And the heart. If you have that, I think you'll make a huge difference to the Indian. And India needs that. India needs every citizen to do this and do it in their own way, not in any other way.
So true. This is so interesting that most of the people that I've spoken to, people talk about contribution. What do you think? What stops people from genuinely contributing to other people's life? Because, on one hand, when we are celebrating startups, we don't celebrate social development sector. We don't celebrate giving that much. Or is it probably my ignorance?
No, I think it's a very good question. When I started my journey in philanthropy, many people asked me lots of questions about, Govind, NGOs actually काम करते हैं, पैसे दोगे, सही जगह पे जाएगा, And I say, I don't know the answer. Let me go in and find out more. And as I've spent more time, and I've had the good fortune of spending time with about 200 not-for-profits, all in the SVP ecosystem and outside, I would say the authenticity, the heart, the passion they bring in, it may not be the same efficient way in which a rupee is used, but it is not misappropriated. It is not meant with a different... It's with the resources they have, they do what they can. And during COVID, I was privileged to be part of the Give India task force, where we raised a large amount of money, probably over $100 million, where we got proposals from people, and we helped donate, and we helped issue grants to NGOs. And I would say 80% or maybe 90% of what we distributed, I think, was used the best way possible.
Beautiful.
In the corporate world, we don't have 100% kosher companies either. The number of companies that go bankrupt, the number of companies that go under, exists in the corporate world, and it's all visible. But yet we are prepared to accept that as cost of doing business. But yet we are not prepared to accept that a not-for-profit can have a struggling year or a different year. My mission is to say, trust your not-for-profit, trust your leader, spend time in the leader. I love the word that somebody used recently, it's not mine, about inspirational leadership. You can have inspirational people, and you can have great leaders. The moment you have inspirational leadership, go and put your money behind it. Don't think twice. The moment you see an inspirational leader, the probability of it going wrong is very low.
Beautiful.
And I think that's what we need to do in the sector. Identify inspirational leaders and back them to success.
Beautiful, beautiful. And finding those are not that easy as well.
No, they're not. And that's the purpose of organizations like SVP. We'll find them.
Yeah.
Today, I'd say we're in the process of doing this, but out of the 165 not-for-profits we supported, I could easily pick out 15 or 20 jewels, easily.
Yeah.
We have to give them the visibility now.
Yeah. And at this point in time, when you look back, is there any unmet dream or any regret that you hold for yourself?
For myself, need, no. I think I've got everything I ever wanted in this world, and
dream is the right word, or
yeah. But I'd say I would have liked to have started doing a lot more work, not just in the sector, but to build capacity and capability in the country, maybe 5-10 years earlier. I wish I'd discovered something like an SVP 5 years or 7 years earlier. I wish I had. I wish I had started spending a little more of my time, carving out some time in my corporate world to do work which will help build capacity and capability in other institutions. Need not be just social sector. Could be people, could be... So it's not a huge regret because I've made up for it. I've caught up. But would I have liked to start that earlier? Probably a little bit.
So would it be a fair assumption to make, I'm just picking up here, that the best investment that you can make is investment on people?
100%. There's no other investment. On people, for the people, to discover their potential.
Yeah.
There's a lovely book written by a gentleman called Deepak Jayaraman, again, an SVP partner, a dear friend.
Good friend he's.
Yeah. Play to potential. I mean, it's just amazing what he's talk about, how everybody has potential, but some people don't know that they have it. Some people don't know how to get it out. And the flavor theme that he uses over there is a very powerful theme. So I think, I think everybody comes into this world with no biases. We come in with actually no identity. We come in with no positive and negative.
And the environment shapes us. And we get the environment grip of identity.
The moment you can identify that, it's amazing.
So let's say if tomorrow, Govind, you have to write a book.
Oh, I'll be a disaster.
And let's say 3 years from now, you're writing a book on only the last 3 years. So 2025 is going on. 2028, you are publishing a book about the last 3 years. only on one theme. Only on one theme that every 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old should read. Why I'm saying, because your son is today 19 year.
Yeah.
What would be the theme of that book?
So for the younger person to read, it would be to continue to seek your dreams, build your aspirations, go serve, go and find a purpose in your life, but recognize that you can do it while carrying people along. You don't need to do it only for yourself.
So it's not about this or that.
No, it's both.
You can always build your dream while you are carrying people along.
Yeah. And it could be in your organization, it could be in your community, it could be in the environment that you live in, it could be anywhere, but don't make it that to achieve your goal, you need to be unitarily focused on yourself.
Yeah.
That would be mine.
Thank you so much for sharing everything that you have shared, Govind. I could not have asked for anything more.
It's very difficult.
So thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was an absolute delight having a conversation, having Govind on this conversation. I had few takeaways from this conversation that I can actually write a book on. And definitely you're going to find teasers, you're going to find reels on that. When you sit along with somebody who is not only successful, but is accomplished and fulfilled in true way, you know why it's important to find your purpose. You know the importance of giving it back. Giving it forward to the next generation. You know what it means to live a life where you are walking on the path that you have carved for yourself while taking other people alongside. Would love to hear, what are your key takeaways from this conversation? What are the questions that are emerging for you? You might not have an answer for that, as Govind was kind enough to share that I don't have an answer for all the questions. So would love to hear questions that have emerged for you. So stay tuned. I would look forward to having another guest on my show for deeper conversations. Stay tuned and do follow us on YouTube, do follow us on Spotify, and subscribe to our Apple Podcast channel. Thank you. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.